Welcome back to the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. In today's episode, we are diving into a fascinating and increasingly relevant topic: the profound impact of our physical work environment on our happiness and productivity. For years, corporations, real estate developments, and even governments have been investing in the creation of smart communities and innovative workspaces, all with the aim of fostering environments where people can truly thrive. But beyond the trendy designs and collaborative spaces, is there solid science backing these initiatives? Joining us today to explore this crucial question is Adel El-Mawla, the visionary founder of Workplace. Adel brings a wealth of experience and a deep understanding of how the science of the workplace intersects with employee well-being and organizational success. Together, we are going to be discussing about the evidence-based principles that underpin effective workplace design and uncover the scientific research that illuminates the intricate relationship between our surroundings and our behavior at work. We are going to be discussing about the science behind workplace impact with Adel. We are going to be exploring the key scientific studies influencing his perspective, evidence-based design for balancing focus, work, and collaboration, and how data on space utilization can reveal employee behavior in hybrid environments. We are going to be also examining the measurable links between office layouts and workplace, the fascinating research on our brains and bodies' reactions to different office setups, and the future evolution of workplace design considering remote work and well-being. Get ready for an insightful conversation that will challenge the way you think about your office and its impact on your happiness and productivity. Let's get started, Adel. It is wonderful to have you finally in the Growth Hacking Culture podcast, Adel. Really.
Thank you, Ivan. Pleasure being here, and thank you for all the audience who'll be listening to us.
Oh, by the way, I'm super curious about your personal life. So, how did you end up uh, founding an awesome company, workplace, and working in different areas of this workplace layout design? How did it come as an interest for you?
Um, yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, the startup really started from a master's program I was doing. So I came across it by kind of a chance. So I was doing my master's in property in Australia, where I met my professor, Nick Nonnington, who's now a co-founder in the business. And we had the project relocation basically, and we needed to, think of everything you need to think about when it comes to workplace strategy. And what I found out throughout that journey was there was no proper mechanism, or approach that how to tackle this. So there are best practices, but no, a defined model or algorithm behind it. And as an engineer by background and also as an entrepreneur, I thought it's very interesting to actually solve this problem. Little did I know, it's gonna take more than a year to crack the code. I thought, I'll do it in a month, in two, and it took us more than a year actually to identify all the, variables and how they connect, and starting with the right questions really. What should we ask? And I guess my background in as an engineer, as an entrepreneur, and also with my knowledge in real estate, really enabled me to tackle this from a different perspective. Yeah, and when you have a passion for a problem to solve, you just figure it out.
Adele, I think it is normal that it took more than 1 year. There is
Yeah,
research that is, as you said, it is not connected. So there is different research about psychological behaviors of humans in the workplace, but it's not aligned with how there is the interaction of the surroundings. There is a lot of research that I have found, but it is not connected. And as you said, that is a question that is worthwhile solving. Uh, Regarding
absolutely.
that, is there any specific scientific research or studies that have influenced your perspective on the relationship between this physical workspace and employee behavior?
Absolutely. I mean, the first really framework we followed was, and luckily, as I mentioned, my professor, he's the co-author of a workplace strategy book, and I'm not sure there's any other really in the market as a framework, and it's called the Corporate Real Estate Asset Management Strategy and Implementation. And this book basically talks about 10 workplace principles. When I started solving this problem, I looked at these principles and got inspired and really tried to condense them into 7 main principles. But at the core, you have people and place, right? So aligning people and place is the common foundation for any successful workplace strategy. So this is where we started, and then it's not just people and place, right? It's also process. So part of process, you're talking about company culture, company objectives. Hence, where we looked at another framework, which is the 4 competing values framework. So for cultural orientations, and then as you dive deeper into it, we also understood the impact of personalities and behavior and preferences. So the like you're who you are as a person, right? Like we want different things. We thrive in different environments. So which traits are relevant to which areas in the workplace strategy? Hence, we looked at a third framework, which is the big 5 personality traits, or what we call OCEAN. So openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and agreeableness.
But
Yeah.
your views on this workplace design, would it be that we have to consider every single individual on the workplace, or is it the optimization of a cohort, a crowd altogether?
So the way we do it is we have like kind of a workplace profile per employee based on understanding their activity patterns, preferences, personality traits, etc. And then we adjust these based on the company objectives, right? So it's like you have a mini profile, and then all these profiles make one big profile for the company. And then how you do your like seating plan or arrangements, or more macro layout, this is where you start looking at like, do you need to do it by zoning, or do you need to do it by neighborhoods, or by department, or by levels of acoustic isolations, and then like more this design thinking comes into that. But what we did initially is really define the needs, and how do these needs align or adjust based on the company strategic goals and objectives.
In particular, in the area of in the context of space layout, is there some evidence, science behind to relate that the design of a workplace has an outcome, a result, or an influence into the focus and into the spontaneous collaboration? What type of science you have behind that that says there is a result? If we change the layout, there is going to be a result in collaboration and focus.
Absolutely. I mean, there's plenty of research, especially after COVID. Like everyone got even more interested. There was research since even pre-COVID, since then probably even the 1980s, right? Like even the 60s, like from the activity-based working as a model that emerged. But so there's plenty of research and scientific evidence. But I can tell you one of the pillars we base our model on is actually having spontaneous collaboration boosts performance, because there's a flow of information and connectivity as well, and just improved performance by having spontaneous collaboration. And spontaneous collaboration has to be factored into the design or the layout. So for example, like having, let's say, a wall where where you can write on and erase, and that's a bit spontaneous. Or even there's a study about like where they position the microwave in different locations, and they saw how people came to the microwaves, and sometimes just to exchange ideas shortly. And these are sometimes subtle, tactics, not really strategic, right? More tactical, but still they have a lot of impact on the performance of a company, right? On a more detailed level, like when you define your cultural orientations, you can also specify your not sharing ratio, right? Like I want to have more sharing environment or more dedicated spaces, and then this decision making, which is also a byproduct or a kind of an consequence to your management style itself, right? Are you a matrix? Are you a flat management style? So these kind of cultures or organizational structures also impact these decisions, whether you're doing them, consciously or subconsciously, or they still have an impact, right? And also the zoning has another impact as well. So depends again on what you want to achieve, that things should be thought of differently to align with your objectives.
You made me think, Adel, is that the fact that in fact there is three different stages in terms of the interest on the space layout. So as you mentioned, pre-COVID, there was already research that was showing interaction with people's productivity and collaboration. But at that time, nobody was giving a damn. Then there was COVID. People started panicking, reading. The production of research increased. And then there is today that many ask themselves, is it going to be expensive, right? During COVID, they were under pressure, and suddenly there is not so much pressure. They think that changing the layout, it is something that is going to be an expensive exercise. It means changing building, increasing the space, and implementing different solutions that are going to cost a bomb. So how do you answer to that specific friction that people have today?
I think people are still, unfortunately, especially workplace strategies in general, right? Like many still look at workplace only from like a physical space perspective, but it's much more than that. I mean, even if you have the best building in town, it doesn't mean your retention is going to improve or your productivity is going to improve, right? So there are many factors that come into play, right? So one is the hybrid balance, for example. Like, let's say you want more, let's say collaboration, right? A lot of misconception today is collaboration means being in office. Presenteeism is not equal collaboration, right? And proof of that is that you have, now we're technically collaborating, right? Like this is actually a collaborative environment. Even if we want to take it to the next step, like even let's say I can share my screen, I can show you stuff. It's more efficient and effective actually, and less, it doesn't waste time rather than in personal settings. And most importantly, if you look at introverts, for example, they don't want to be in person with other people, right? They may want to be sometimes, but you can't expect them to be their best and next to everyone. They prefer their own environment, their solitude, their own space. So when you want to put someone out of their comfort zone or out of their most holistic or suitable environment, you're not gonna bring the best out of these people, right? But is the company culture trusting? Does it empower people? Does it want them to feel autonomous? These are decisions that and that are again back. It's a circle, right? That's why it took us a whole year, because we had to think of all these variables and try to connect them based on the data that we have. But all of this goes back again, like management, cultural orientations, and then comes these decisions. So it's not the physical space. And today offices are becoming places of really destination and not places of work only, right? Like and that's why like all of a sudden, like COVID proved that remote work and hybrid work is just fine, right? Like it works. Actually, it proved that it's much better in terms of productivity, retention, like satisfaction, less stress from commute. Commute is a major issue, by the way, even for governments. I don't want to go off tangent, but a lot of things connect in this realm, right? But you can't just look at it from a space context and just like, I have a better space, everyone should come to the office. It doesn't work like this at all.
I have the impression that people are a little bit confused because, yes, we think the first thing that comes is changing the space. And the reality, as you mentioned, it is that small little changes help you to progress drastically because the space might be one of the elements, but we don't know what is the real outcome. And for that, you need data. And that is one of the biggest challenges for people that they don't have data. There is like an architect that comes and say, this is going to be wonderful and it's going to be amazing for collaboration, but there is no fucking data around it to prove if it is real or not. So, and that has become the major challenge. How do we prove that if I do even a small investment, I have big results? And it's not only about the space itself, right?
Absolutely. So when you're making workplace strategies, so one, you need to have a framework, right? Or a proper logic on how things connect. And that's what really work-based mission is about. So we're saying we started as a slogan, defining workplace logic, right? And then we moved to defining optimal workplace strategies. But the optimal is based on a logic, right? So which logic are you doing? So in the current approach, like you need to do workshops, understand leadership position, their needs, understand employees, departments, collaboration, connectivity diagrams, and personalities, and like all these layers of data before you actually start thinking about what space do I need. But is this actually the right space, right? So how designing or strategizing is something, and then reality might hit you in the face, right? Like how can I actually check or validate that what I assumed makes sense? And this is where IoT sensors, for example, is one way to measure data, and occupancy and utilization. But it's also not enough because IoT, it only measures these, right? But this is looking at it from a only quantitative perspective, right? But you also have the behavioral perspective and the qualitative analysis. So there's an old practice that is becoming again more popular that we also offer is occupancy through observation, where you actually we send someone to the environment, to the space. They actually take measurement, they check which activities are being done, what type of interaction is happening, what's the space capacity, how many people are actually in the space. So there's some similar data you can get from the sensors, but there's much more data you can get from the sensors. We even include 1 minute interview where we ask the person, is this the right environment for what you're doing? And if not, then why not? What are the issues? And is there another space where you would have preferred to do this activity? And if yes, then why aren't you doing it there, right? So small questions that make a huge difference, because at the end of the day, it's people working in places. And unfortunately, a lot of business owners forget that business is about people. If your people are not thriving, it's the biggest asset you have. It's not your computer, it's not your even your current cash flow, whatever, right? Because everything can go up and down, but it's people that will drive always the performance. And unfortunately, they don't focus on it as much, right? So, but these are some of the tools that you can measure and improve on your overall layout. And I would add one more thing. When you have a booking reservation system, which is also one of our solutions, that's another layer of data as well that would also tell you about what people want, what they are checking, and it's not available or available, etc. So, and that's how you can really figure out what you need to improve by priority, and to be able to see different layers on the same level of floor plan or office, right? So seeing it from this angle and this angle and that angle would give you a much deeper perspective and a granular analysis to make better decisions after you strategize and you assume that this is how it should look like.
In fact, it looks to me that people have different options today. So there is a traditional way of having a consultant doing 10 million workshops in order to understand how people feel better. There is also the fact that you can install different IoT, a very mechanical way of measuring usability. And then there is the human side, which is asking the questions directly to people. How are you feeling? Are we improving on that in an easy manner? And then there is the third layer, the third option is, how do we reduce the friction of asking all these questions? And there it is where workplace comes handy, because in one shot, easy solutions that come in gathering information from different individuals, and you get kind of real-time data to know if the small change that you have done today has got an impact in 1 week or 2 weeks. And then you can iterate and improve, because at the end, an organization is like a human being. We have personalities. Organizations have a culture, which is the equivalent of a personality. So it wouldn't be the same having an assessment in, I don't know, Pepsi versus Toyota, for instance, now that we have been discussing about Japanese people.
Yeah, I'm not sure Toyota is the right example with what's happening now with their business, but yeah.
Well, it seems that they're selling well in the United States. So they have been selling cars like there is no tomorrow. Anyways, I don't want to go into that direction. But there is an interesting topic about hybrid environments. And the nastiest thing is that governments have sponsored research. Like, I remember the UK in certain areas, they have been sponsoring research. In certain states of the United States, it has been done. And suddenly there is many CEOs who say, guys, you gotta come back to work. So either they don't give a damn about the research that proves a positive impact on productivity and having a hybrid environment. What is going on? What does it, in reality, I want to ask you, what research says about it?
That's honestly, that's an easy answer, but for some reason, people just refuse to just accept, right? But it's also we're creatures of habits. Like, if you've been doing something for so long, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's not true, but we've been doing it for so long. Like, your bias kind of kicks in, and it's like, no, this is what we do best, right? So I explain what I mean, but in line with what you're talking, we just actually launched we published 3 articles about like hybrid policies in the UAE, in the UK, and in the US. And it's a very nice series of articles. And also I think yesterday or before yesterday, we published a white paper talking about hybrid work and the difference between policies across governments and nations. So I highly recommend to read these pieces of material. But back to your question, again, UAE tested with 4 days work week, right? Not 5, 4 days, not hybrid, just 4 days. And productivity, satisfaction, everything improved, right? By consequence, retention, and by consequence, profitability as well, right? That's one example, right? When we think about organizations, like it depends again on the structure, but you have a company where the CEO is the only decision maker, and he thinks he knows it all, or she thinks she knows it all, right? And then everyone back to the office, right? And you see this everywhere. Why? If it works for you, it doesn't work for others. Second, if you have a whatever $100,000 salary a month, and it's very convenient, and you're living in a very nice apartment, whatever, and you have your own driver, like, yeah, you can go to office, it's chill, it's fun, it's nice. But someone who's commuting for 3 fucking hours every day,
Mm.
and you expect them to just come happy and like just work their ass off for you so you can make more money. Like, again, I don't want to get into the culture and the how, the incentives, of or lack of incentives for employees, disregarding all of this. Why? You're not assuming their preference. You're not assuming their person's situation. What if someone has caregiver responsibilities? What if someone have kids? If you have a newborn, right? I'm not a father right yet, right? Hopefully someday. But you have kids, right? I mean, if you just had a newborn, are you gonna be, if you just had a newborn, right? A month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, and you're now working from an office, you're gonna think about this newborn because there's sense of attachment. You're not gonna be fully focused. But if you actually enable the person to be where he wants to be now, they're gonna give you much more than you want them to give. And it's not just because they are in the right environment, but also because you gave them trust and they will reciprocate trust. If trust is not reciprocated, then obviously you hired the wrong person. But hiring the wrong person, hiring the wrong person and putting them in the right environment is much better than hiring the wrong person and putting them in the wrong environment, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way to look at it. But there's no one size fits all as well. So companies after COVID, we went from, and many of companies you can think of, like from Amazon, and you can name hundreds. They went from like 5 days remote to 5 days in office to 3 days remote to 3 days in office and they still till now keep changing because someone new has a better idea, and still all this decision making is based on guesswork. Like, it's not a lottery ticket, it's not you're not playing poker, you're not bluffing. Like, you either have a proper understanding why you're making this decision, or don't make a decision, bring someone who can help you make that decision, right? And definitely it shouldn't be a one person, because even the CEO might have, and that's one of the problems we solve actually, is the alignment within the leadership itself, because the CEO wants something, and then the CFO wants something, and the HR wants something, and the real estate wants something, and so on. So there's more variety and complexity and decision making from a stakeholder's perspective when it comes to, again, hybrid work decisions, and by consequence space layout decisions. Because if you're gonna have some hybrid work, your office utilization is gonna be different, and then by consequence your real estate costs are going to be different, etc. So that's why it's all integrated and intertwined, and still till today, unfortunately, like, most companies still do it based on guesswork. And there's a study that tells that only 10% of companies have actually a workplace strategy, and only one out of 100, so one out of the 10%, out of 100 from the 10%, have a working strategy, like a strategy that they are actually happy with. Yeah.
And then you make me think that when you were talking about the scenario of a father, the level of satisfaction that you have when you can organize your life around your family and your work, the level of productivity that you have. Usually, for instance, I devote a couple of hours to discuss with my daughters about their homework. So having in the middle of the day the possibility to just connect with them, just to do the homework, and then getting back to work. I mean, it's almost like I have, my brain is already with the satisfaction of doing something personal, and at the same time, the motivation to keep on doing great, productive work. And that has no price, really.
Absolutely. Like, we forget that we're, I mean, if you think, again, I don't want to go off tangent, but like, a lot of things connect, right? But if you look at marketeers, for example, so what do they look at? Your sentiment, right? How can they trigger something in you to make a purchase? It's the same. If you're doing work, if it's a sentiment. If you don't feel it's not about feeling wanting to work, because the company needs to put effort into bringing the best out of their people. A CEO's role is to manage resources and manage the team and lead the culture. But how are you doing that? It's just like, I want it, like it's not a childish behavior. It's not like I want that toy and then we're gonna give it to you. If you're gonna deal with your team on that basis, if anything, they're gonna do the complete opposite, right? So how are you fostering that environment of trust, of leadership, of open communication, and belonging as well, right? So if these sentiments lag, and by the way, these sentiments are not equally important for people. So, and I'll tell you from the data that we have, for example, like marketing department, for example, because they understand people, they care more about feeling involved and trusted compared to, let's say, for example, a finance department from our like historic data, right? Because they are just different people. Some are more analytical, other are more, people oriented, or more, extroverted, or So it's also understanding what departments need. But in general, what I'm trying to convey is that it's not, I want it this way and it's gonna happen. You need to, have the right environment for it, which translate partly into schedule and into space plan.
I understood, Adel, that you are also heavily involved with academics. You have your co-founder who is in academics, and I think you are also in academics doing something in Australia. Now, have you come across any cool studies that look at how our brains and bodies react to different office setups? Is there something like amazing, like you say, wow?
A lot of things sometimes are kind of intuitive to us, like we kind of know about it, but maybe data will just put it in your face much clearer. So yeah, there are plenty. I highly advise people to read the book Corporate Real Estate: Asset Management Strategy and Implementation, because it's actually a framework, but it has a lot of references to studies, over more than 25 years of research. But I'll tell you some of the, what's on top of my mind now. So, for example, female in general are like get their productivity drops in colder environments. And if you actually ask female versus male, what do you think about the indoor temperature? You'll get much more complaints from female compared to male, because they just, their bodies get colder and their productivity drops, right? So 1 degree of temperature can make a major impact on your company productivity. And that's why, like, it's not just, even if you don't want to have the degree, at least have a small heater somewhere, right? At least do something that satisfy their needs, right? So that's one. Two, biophilia, right? Natural lighting, artificial lighting. Is it too dim? Is it too bright? Is it the wrong color temperature? Do I have a natural environment? Like, do I feel like there's a bit of greenery around me, right? Because you don't want to be in a concrete place 24/7. The colors of the space, like when you're in a space that is just concrete and it doesn't feel fresh or light, it's gonna affect your mood. Like, why do we assume we spend so much money and so much time finding and designing our home, yet we spend much more time in office? But no, let's not care about that, because this is something common. But you want people to work, years, sometimes 2 decades, right? Like some people stay more than 3 decades in the same company, and you just want to give them the bare minimum. And it's not about the amount of money you can spend, because you can be smart in so many ways and creating these, right? So like a plant costs literally $3, right? But it does have an impact, even if it's fake plant, even if it's a fake plant, you don't need to have the most expensive one, or have a garden around your employees, but small things matter. And if you ask your employees, they will tell you. So part of our approach to this is, as you mentioned, like we have the workplace experience assessment, where employees share their experience, what's important, what's not important, what's the experience like, what issues they have, and then among many other questions. But then it gives you enough visibility to say, oh, okay, listen, I can actually, like, I can make a small adjustment and have an impact. And even if you're looking at the cheapest stuff you can make, like adding plants, right? Like, which is really cheap. But just putting the effort will convey a message that you actually care and you actually listen, which will have a ripple effect as well, by consequence.
You made me think about the famous offices in Dubai, Adel. Too bloody cold. And imagine the productivity of women in this type of environment. There is always the AC blasting. Men are happy and women are less.
Absolutely. I have a friend, he left the company. He's a very tempered person. Like you can't say angry guy, right? So he's tempered, and then like anything would trigger him. And then he started this job, and in like 3 months he left. And I was like, what the hell? Like you said, it's you like it, it's a good job, it's well paid, etc. And then he told me, and it was in Dubai. He told me the wait period for the lift. Like he got so irritated because he had to go up and down. He was in sales. Like every time he had to go to the office, he had to wait like a couple of minutes, and then it irritated him. I'm not saying you should consider every edge case, but I'm saying like there are so many things that can make a make the wrong factors for certain people.
Yeah. Let me put it in context for the Europeans. So I used to have an office back there in Dubai in JLT, and I can tell you sometimes for the lift I had to wait more than 5 minutes every time. So that was a lot. Adam, I have a question. So how do you see the science of workplace design evolving? And we have to consider that there is technology, AI. We have more focus on employee well-being. In some cases, uh, efforts towards remote work. So where are we going in terms of the science of workplace design?
That's a tough one. Um, I think more companies are moving towards downsizing and merging offices, part of their portfolio optimization strategy. So that's one trend you can already notice. And another one you can think of is buildings. So many companies now either look at co-working spaces in remote or rural areas where you have some people are moving away from the cities for cost of living, etc. So having co-working near these people would enable them to attract better like talents and also cheaper cost, and then have like the head office in the city where people can commute for certain functions or more other reasons. So this is another trend where you have the decentralization of offices, but at the same time centralization of main hubs, but in smaller spaces. And these main hubs are also now looking more at prime and grade A buildings, because because they saved elsewhere, they can still offer a better experience somewhere, right? Which in other words mean amenities and facilities and location and accessibility and neighborhood, and all of these are very important factors as well. But to speak more about the science, IoT is definitely here to stay and to grow. And with AI linked to IoT and all the innovation we're seeing, like in it's already there actually, but maybe it's not as abundant, but you can tell your coffee machine to do something for you, right? As simple as that. And then maybe in a few years, and also I don't think it's many few years ahead, you're gonna probably have a robot to deliver that coffee for you, right? So we are moving in that direction, whether we want to accept it, believe it or not, but it's happening, right? And these are some of the technologies and new sciences that are really redefining workplace as we know, and it has always been evolving, but how fast it is evolving now, that's the difference. Like things used to happen slower, and the perspective of time and now it's like every year we're gonna move faster and faster and faster. But it brings me to someone told me ages ago, like the strongest species are the most adaptive, right? And it's very true. And if business owners and decision makers are not gonna adapt, someone else is, and they will have an edge over you. And just basics of economy, you'll be out of market sooner or later. And these are part of your key decisions. Like workplace is one core element of your business performance overall. And if you don't look at it, or if you look at it, this is one major factor of just like you need to look at market and competition, etc. But this is a major factor between having a good company and a great company.
I can easily imagine, Adel, a future version of Workplace where, as a CEO, I just open my dashboard and I can see the human temperature of the office. I can see how people are they being productive, are they being happy, and all interconnected with a lot of sources of data. I think that I'm not far from my dream today, right?
No, you're not. And I think it's happening way. I don't think it's happening way too fast for because we're in the industry, like you kind of see it, but some people like are a bit looking behind. How can you be proactive and be future ready when you're looking at what's in the past, right? Yeah.
Adel, so let's not imagine. What it happens very often is that people are going to want to ask you a couple of questions because obviously not everybody has the accessibility to so much science and so much internal data because you have been collecting data from different corporations. So how can they reach you out to ask you questions? What is the best way to have a chat with you?
LinkedIn, easy. My email address, Adel, ADEL at workplace.com. And they can find our website. We actually have many free tools on the website to offer value for people who don't know enough about workplace, or people who actually even know enough and want quick kind of answers regarding what hybrid work from home policy should I have, what space plan should I have. I'm talking high level, right? Because it's a 2-minute quick tool that you can fill out a few questions and it tells you what you need. But the actual solution, the paid version will give you, you can customize things, you can make better assumptions, you can invite employees to participate, and then have more actual real data. We also have like a workplace performance quiz where it tells you how well you are doing on a workplace strategy level. So yeah, all of these are channels, or they can talk to you, Ivan, right? Like we're buddies. So.
Why not? Adel, thank you very much for this amazing discussion. I'm going to be putting all of the links below this episode. It was amazing to have you finally in the Growth Hacking Culture podcast, Adel.
Thank you, Ivan. My pleasure. And thank you so much for providing a platform, not just for me, for many other entrepreneurs, innovators, strategists, and growth hackers, to really help people, because knowledge is power, and the more we share, everyone is a winner. So thank you again, and good luck for everyone.
My pleasure.